an eye ready to blink. So face forward, with arms wide open and mind reeling. Your future has arrived. Are you ready to go?
The loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Jimmy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said, give up,
Give up.
give up,
Give up.
give up.
Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Tonight's a very special night. You can call into the program, 877-733-1011. That's 877-733-1011. Tonight, we have the Crystal Skull in studio. For those of you that are on Facebook, facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio, you can view the skull. And as I was talking earlier about panpsychism, I wanted to give you a background on why we went back to talking about panpsychism, and it's because I was doing, actually Wes and I were rerunning an old Ground Zero show where we talked with Brian Greene about string theory. And I remember that interview well. I was very nervous because Brian Greene had I think it was his first book on string theory. It was his first book on string theory, and I hadn't. I read some of it, and I didn't really know all that much about string theory. I was a little nervous about talking with him, and so he was coming on to promote his book. And I told him in the interview, I said, I'm a high school guy, don't know much about string theory. Can you please walk me through it? Handle me with kid gloves. And so he was happy to just kind of like, I don't know if he was dumbing it down, but he certainly was giving it the college try of making it easy for me to understand what it was. And of course, when you're in pure science right now, many physicists, they are committed to talking about multiverses and different dimensions and ways to somehow tap into those dimensions. And we've talked about that, using such things as alchemy. There's always the magical realm where you can go into other dimensions. There are ciphers and sigils and other ways to go into other dimensions. And then, of course, we have CERN, which is constantly, blasting particles apart. And they, too, may find themselves opening other dimensions. You remember that the Department of Energy, in an interview, Ernest Moniz said the same thing. He said, we have gone into parallel universes, and we've done so using new sciences. So theories about what is out there, theories about consciousness, all of these things have bordered on the bizarre lately, for sure, and we know this. And when I say bizarre, I mean that you're looking at traditional science, and they used to be afraid to talk about things that, well, they would limit their theories about such things as frequency, and that all things have power, and all things have or convey some sort of powerful frequency, and that is, of course, that is called panpsychism, which panpsychism is the idea that consciousness might be the property of many kinds of matter, not just in your brain, not just your soul, but everything kind of has it has a way about it, has a power about it. So with strings and multiverses come dimensions. With dimensions come communication. With communication comes the reality of that all things are happening simultaneously. And we need to find a way to understand and use tools to somehow find out more about physical and mental matter. So panpsychism is a new science which again includes the theory of everything, but it's keen on primarily gathering information from inanimate objects. And from them, they gain insights as to what they have preserved and what they can reveal for the future. This would mean that perhaps many of the things the ancients used in ritual could very well have been powerful and energized with power and frequency. And I'm talking about crystals. Okay, I'm talking about back in the days of Exodus, The one who officiated over the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant, would wear a breastplate over their garment, ephods embroidered with gold, and then, of course, you got all these crystals. You had rubies, topaz, carbuncle, emerald, sapphire, diamonds, jacinth, agate, amethyst, beryl, and onyx, jasper, a number of things, 12 stones. So the stones were worn in order to communicate with God or to communicate with a higher power. And people say, well, okay, that was just superstitious. But no, crystals, especially quartz crystal, does receive and store, also transmits energy and information, just like a crystal radio set does. And I remember we were talking earlier about crystal radio sets and how just little crystals, cat's whisker, a little bit of copper wiring, and a stylus gives you a radio station. You can pick up radio signals. You can pick up anything with that stuff. So let's say, for example, you have a big crystal conductor, or you have something that conduct and receive communication. And let's say the best place to get that communication would be through the crystal into the brain, which also is I guess you could call it a case to hold the brain together. So if you had something similar to the head, that would take that communication, then you'd have the best conductor, would you not? So that's why crystal skulls, when brought into rooms, when brought into areas, they convey or they have that kind of power to conduct that type of activity. And so we have tonight Bill Holman, who's the caretaker of the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull. Bill Holman's background in the Air Force, martial arts, makes him the ideal caretaker for ensuring the safety of the Mitchell-Hedges crystal skull. Bill Holman is also valiantly succeeding in carrying out the wishes of Anna Mitchell-Hedges as he travels around the world, making this famous crystal skull available directly to the public instead of having it reside behind glass in a museum. And it's sitting here right now in the Ground Zero studio, and sitting right next to me is Bill Holman. Bill, welcome to Ground Zero. It's good to hear you. Good to see you back.
Oh, it's very nice to be here, and I'm enjoying this as always. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight.
I think we are too, and I think and as I said, we have this new technology that we're going to be using. And I remember the last time we used technology to listen to the skull speak, and it was amazing because we had someone else that was on the line with us. We had Carol Wilson, who was with us. And Carol, of course, is on Skype right now, so we're going to bring her on board too. And Carol, it's been a while since we've talked. How are you, Carol? Are you there, Carol? You got her up on Skype, right? Or have we called her? Well, I don't think we've called her. Let's call her and see. Okay, well, let's get her on Skype. I didn't know if we called her or not. Do we want to break? Could we break early? All right, we're going to break early and get a hold of Carol, because I have a feeling that, while we were setting up, we forgot to call her. Okay. So we're going to call Carol and get her on. We were all excited to get this skull. We forgot to call our guest. So we're going to have Carol, who's a psychic, by the way, on the program tonight with Bill, and the crystal skull, Mitchell-Hedges skull, right here on Ground Zero. We're going to call her, get her on board, and then we're going to have some fun with the skull. We're going to talk a bit about the skull, its background, and everything like that. So stand by, 877-733-1011. That's 877-733-1011. We'll be back. Don't go away. Okay, we're calling. Here we go. Oh, I know.
Hello?
Hey, Carol?
Yes?
Hi, we have you on Skype now. We didn't even call you. We're so busy setting up the skull, we forgot to call you.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So we have you on, and we're going to be talking. We're coming out of the break. I just introduced Bill, and then we're going to introduce you, and then we're going to have a discussion about the skull, and then we're going to do some skull stuff. So you hang in there, okay? We'll be right with you. Skull stuff.
What is skull stuff?
I don't know.
Skull stuff.
Skull stuff.
Okay. Skull stuff. Got it.
Okay. You're still the same. I love you, Carol. You're amazing. Hold on. We'll be right with you. That was my monitor doing that. We forgot that she's on the same monitor.
You scared me, Clyde.
I scared me too.
I was like, I didn't do it. It's not me.
I didn't know I had volume up on my computer. This is insane. We're doing we did this so quickly. We did this so quickly, Carol, that we're just like, we're professionals. We're radio professionals, right? So that means I can't watch the video and answer people's questions in here because it'll make noises. So, Carol, how have you been?
Well, thank you. Yes. And you?
I'm doing great. I mean, when was the last time I saw you? We were at Indian Wells, weren't we? Mm-hmm. That's where we saw each other.
Yes.
And I finally met you, and I was so happy to meet you because, you know, you've been on the program, and you're such a remarkable psychic. Such a remarkable person.
Am I?
Yes, you are.
I think that's just to me.
You are in my book, certainly. No, Bill had something he was saying that was really interesting. Tonight we have a full moon. It's the corn moon, is it not, Bill?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yep.
And Bill is saying that with the crystal skull here, what were you saying, Bill, about love and harmony? And
Well, right now, the skull works for universal love. That's why it's here. What it's doing brought to the people to bring this out. And so, being in Portland, sending out universal love and peace, I think it's the right place, the right time, with a full moon too.
especially when we're in this middle of this
Whole thing, yeah.
this rioting and stuff. We are ground zero for the rioting and everything going down, and so having the skull here does bring some power. And I know that, like I say, whenever the skull is here, I get this rush of adrenaline, and I get so excited and get worked up about it. And Carol, what is it with the power of the skull? Why is it that the skull has so much power that affects people the way it does?
Well, on a more practical level, you're dealing with a huge piece of quartz crystal. So we know that the tiniest, the size of my small fingernail, runs a lot of electronics, and you have a whole big hunk of crystal there, added to which it's carved, and carved quite uniquely, especially in the eye sockets where it has prisms.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you're dealing with a power object that, in its own right, has power, and it will bounce off anything that the energy that it picks up around. And if the energy happens to be of a negative influence, it will cancel it out.
Well,
I've do many things.
Well, you know, and Bill's talking about love. He's talking about how this is going to radiate love here in the city that seems to be chaotic. A lot of people are asking right now, what are your views on COVID-19 and how long we're going to be stuck in this pandemic we're in right now?
You're asking my views?
Yes. Well, a lot of people know that you're a psychic and want to hear what you have to say. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting because the book, The Skull Speaks, which was written it was actually written in the late 70s, and we finally published, I think, in 84. It has whole sections about the times that we're in now. And I didn't know this till somebody read it to me the other day, and I said, good heavens. So it is saying that it even apparently says the words that a virus will be created, and which has no name at this time, and gives an outline of what is going to happen with the people, and really is just forecasting what we are going through now in quite some detail. So what do I think? Personally, the message that the skull always gives is that here is the scenario. It is in your hands to change it. We've given you what is coming up the road. You're going down the road, now change it. And it's always giving a positive message like that. Do I think that the skull itself, with the energy that's contained in there, will do some very positive effects on people? Yes, I do. Our greatest, the teaching of the skull is one of the worst things we can do is to enter into the fear factor. Because once you do that, you become a pawn. And it is said that this disease is man-made and can be cured, as all man-made diseases can, with light and sound. Well, the crystal skull has both light and sound. But our science...
So you're actually saying that this disease, COVID-19, is
yes,
on a frequency.
Yes.
And it can be dissolved with light and with sound like anything else. And, that makes a lot of sense when you look into something like psionics, where psionics tells you that light and frequency also can construct or destroy things. And so, I don't know is there psionic energy involved with this bill at all? Do you know of?
Oh, let's see. I'm not real familiar with that energy, but I am very knowledgeable in the energy of the skull.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, okay, so psionic energy is kind of like the idea that mind and will can make things happen, make change. Kind of like the idea that you've heard the story, it's always a story about how this woman's driving in her car. She hits a snowbank, and her son falls out of the car, and the car accidentally falls on top of her son. So she gets out of the car, and she lifts the car off of her son. Now they say, well, that's adrenaline, but why didn't her arms break? Her arms didn't break because of psionic energy. It's what a lot of people who are into martial arts use to break rocks with their heads, or to break wood, is they use psionic energy. They focus on something, and when they focus on, probably focus on the skull, with will, they can make things happen. Does it have that kind of power?
Well, let's see. It is an amplifier of thought. And when you get a group of people working with that amplifier, you have a great effect. So as far as that goes, that's just the story of life. A person that has a connection between soul and spirit, the skull says, are people that are the creators. They create everything. If you look at your life and you've looked at your life, whatever you think comes around you. Mm-hmm. Okay, you create it. Mm-hmm. And so if you're using this creative ability in a positive way, positive things happen. So the skull's message is to always stay in balance. Now, there's so many things in the world that pulls you out of balance and pulls you into this fear. So if you're in fear, you see it in the news, you hear this, something happens, you're pulled into that, then you spiral into a negative thoughts, and that you're out of control and you don't have your creative ability is lost. But if you can immediately go into balance, and all it is training your mind to make it in balance, you can change it and go positive. So the real secret of what's happening right now, as the people that have this gift, and how many people do, there's so many people that have the soul-spirit connection, that if they stay positive and think and stay balanced and think positive, they can make all positive good things happen in the world. The skull said, there was a legend that there's 13 skulls, and if we take all 13 skulls, we stick them on the table in here, they're all around, then world peace could happen. That's what one of the legends, bring them together. But the skull says that if you have a group of people with like mind, mm-hmm. and you focus positively on world peace, you could have it tomorrow. You could have it tomorrow, not like next year.
So you can manifest. You can manifest. You can manifest.
You can manifest. With the skull makes it is easier because it focuses your energy.
Sure.
But we can do it ourselves.
Right.
If we stay positive.
Bill Holman's with us tonight on Ground Zero, and Carol Wilson is with us as well, talking about the crystal skull, Mitchell Hedges' crystal skull. More on the history of the skull, and then we're going to be also taking calls. We're going to be communicating with the skull. We're using Carol as a medium, and also we have the white circle technology that we will experiment with tonight with the crystal skull to see if the frequencies can align and we can get some sound out of the thing, which would be kind of fun. Anyway, coming up on Ground Zero, 877-733-1011. That's 877-733-1011. Back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
Everywhere at once, more powerful than a whisper, invading your dreams, thinking your thoughts for you while you sleep.
So there's the Phyllis Newman skull named Max. She has to put it in the closet because it talks to her. There's
Wait.
What could you give me?
Everything.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. Tonight, the star of the show is the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, Bill Holman, the caretaker. Carol Wilson, the psychic, on Skype right now. Now, I want to ask a question about this so we can make sure they're clear. Now, I was reading something that Brad Olson had posted earlier. It was weird because it was synchronistic. I saw something that Brad Olson had posted about the skull and about how, I think he was saying something to the effect that it was carved in such a way that science looks at it and they say, well, it should have cracked, but it didn't. Something to that effect. Tell me about the science behind this and why this is such a mystical skull.
Okay,
Get on the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, sorry. It's what's so different about it is made against the grain. So to make it, crystal is very hard, but it also is brittle. Mm-hmm. And anytime you would carve it, you always have to follow very carefully the patterns of the grain. Mm-hmm. If you went against it, it would not be here; it would shatter. Mm-hmm. As far as as we know, it has lenses and prisms built inside the crystal.
Right. Now, show the audience who's watching on Facebook right now.
It's built inside the crystal. So to do that, it would take like zero gravity. So how would where it was made or how it was made? We don't know. Mm-hmm. It has it's made in two pieces. The jaw and the top are separate.
So the mandible can be separated from the skull. Let's demonstrate that right now. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so the mandible separates from the skull. And
the molines line up perfectly from the top to the bottom, so it was cut perfectly. Right at
the teeth detail is amazing. That's something that I don't know how they could have done that, but the teeth detail is just remarkable, the way it all fits together like that.
Yeah, and it has dolphins in the cheekbones. So on both sides, there's one on this side and there's one on the other side. Mm-hmm. You see it when the light pops out.
And and it's a wonder that didn't crack because it's so thin. Yeah. With the cheekbones attached to the face of the skull, which is amazing, and the nose as well. The nose piece, or the idea where the nose is supposed to go. You'd think that area would crack because it's so fine.
And if you look in the back of it, it's like you can see two halves of a human brain inside. So I'll show you.
Oh, that is bizarre. That's bizarre. It's like looking right into a brain. Just show the audience here if they can see that.
Yes, the
right on the camera.
You have to get it at the right angle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting for those who are watching this. I'm watching on Facebook. We have a little bit of a delay, and so it's amazing to see just what you're demonstrating to the audience here of what's going on here. And once again, if you're not joining us tonight on Facebook, you're missing out on looking at the Mitchell Hedges skull. You go to facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. That's facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio. Carol, how long have you had this, I guess you could say, psychic connection to this Mitchell Hedges crystal skull?
I think it goes back to the 60s.
So it's been that long ago.
And that's when I first was introduced to it. And from then on, it used to be 2 or 3 times a week. And we would go to conferences. And we also, of course, started to write the books. So I was going sometimes twice a week to visit with the skull.
What was your first impression of it when you saw it?
Carol, why don't you tell the story of when you saw it? That's quite interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to hear this. Okay.
Well, some people that knew of the work that I was doing, actually at that time with law enforcement, somebody was missing and they were part of the family. After I'd spoken with the officers, and they said to me, "Would you like to see the crystal skull?" And my background then was in medical field, and I said, "No, a skull? No, thank you." And didn't really understand what they were asking. And so a few weeks later, I saw this group of people again, and they said, "Are you sure you wouldn't like to see the crystal skull? It's, very intriguing." I said, "No, thank you." And I'm thinking at the back of my mind, what are these people into? There's skulls and bones and, black magic and stuff. Yeah. I said, "No, thank you." Anyway, the third time they said, "This is an archaeology find, and because it's a crystal, they can't carbon date it." And we thought maybe you could, using psychometry, find out some things about it. And I said, oh, that's different. When they mentioned archaeology, I was right in. And anyway, long story short, they took me to where Miss Mitchell Hayes was living, a 2-hour journey in the snow. I was just getting out of the car, and they said, oh, by the way, don't say anything psychic, because she's had some bad times with people who said they were psychic and were trying to take money as. And I said, okay, what am I to do then? And I wanted to get back in the car. Anyway, we went to the door, and Anna opened the door, and she was very gracious and said, oh, you're English. And I said, well, yes, but actually I'm Welsh. And her then secretary, Cynthia, who was behind her, said, oh, if you're Welsh, you're even better. Come on in. So I went in, and right facing the front door on a little table sat this beautiful object, and I was stunned by the beauty of it. But I thought, well, there's nothing I can do with this thing. Mm-hmm. So we visited, had tea, and for a couple of hours. And when I'm thinking we're going now, she said, oh, but I'm sure you wanted to see the skull. Picks it up and puts it on the table in front of the group and myself. And they started, like people do, oh, did you see that? Oh, look, there's a face. Oh, look, there's something else. Carol, can you see this? Carol, can you see that? And I thought, uh-oh, this is the Emperor's New Clothes, because I didn't see anything.
Right.
And I find, oh, okay. And then I sort of had enough, and I put my arm up and put my head in my hand, and I thought, if I close my eyes, they'll think I'm doing something very profound, and they'll leave me alone, because they kept saying, Carol, Carol, do you see this? So that's what I did. And then I heard a noise, and I thought, oh, geez, I've fallen asleep, and I'm snoring. Mm-hmm. How am I going to get out of this? Graciously. So one of them said, wow, did you hear that? And I said, yes. I opened my eyes, and they were all looking at me. They said, you heard that? I said, yes. Mm-hmm. What? And they clicked on a tape recorder, and for 2 hours, there had been streaming information concerning the skull, which they told me was coming from me, but sounds nothing like me whatsoever. And they said, yeah, this was you.
So you were it wasn't electronic voice phenomenon. It was you speaking. You were. Yes. It was communicating through you.
Yes, but it doesn't sound anything. Even the speech patterns are entirely different than the way I speak. And so they had these recordings, and I then thought, okay, that's the last time I'm going to see the crystal skull, because that's not for me.
What kind of voice? What kind of voice was it projecting out of you? Was it a male voice or a female?
It's a job to tell. You wouldn't easily tell whether mm-hmm. it's male or female, and the way that it words things and speech patterns are very different than mine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And anyway, I thought, okay, this is something this. I don't understand this. That's it for me. I'll give it a wide berth, and nobody will talk about it again.
Right.
But that week, the next weekend, Sammy called me, and she said, would you like to come up for tea? And I said, oh, certainly, So I went for tea, as I thought. And while we were there was a knock at the door, and some people that used to just turn up at this lady's door from all over the world. And I think they were from Germany, I don't remember, and they had no appointment, don't know how they found her, and said, could we see the crystal skull? And quite graciously, and she did this all the time, opened the door, said, yes, come on in, and yes, I'll show you the skull, and you're lucky there's a lady here who can help you with the skull. And I'm thinking, I hope she doesn't mean me. And she said, oh, yes, she'll tell you about the skull. And then it happened again. I heard myself talking, and now an hour had gone past, and I sort of felt a bit tired, and I realized I'd been in an altered state, I'd like to call it.
At that time, did you know that you were a medium at the time, or did you just discover it when you found the skull?
I just discovered it. Well, that wasn't the way I worked. If it was mediumship and communicating with those that passed on the other side, that was very easy. I was still myself and et cetera, and could pass on the messages.
Right. Were you getting images in your head, and then you were just passing the messages on in language? Is that how it spoke to you?
Yeah. When you're doing mediumship, you basically can take the personality of the deceased that's trying to get their message across to their loved ones. Mm-hmm. I've even done it in a foreign language which I don't speak.
Right.
But this was much more powerful, and I didn't have any control. That's what I didn't like. It was like, shoo, gone. And so these people left, and I had figured this was going to be the last visit, but Sammy had other ideas and called me again, and she was a lovely lady. You could never say no, because what Sammy wanted, Sammy got.
Right.
And she just invited me up again, and the more used to I got to being with the skull, the easier it became. I didn't really put up the big fight that I thought.
So the more you got to know the skull, the more you feel comfortable with the skull, and it became easier to communicate and to use it, have it use you as a medium. So I mean, just discovering that you're a medium after having an encounter with the skull, I think would be a little nerve-wracking in a way. Carol Wilson with us tonight on Ground Zero, and Bill Homan, Crystal Skull. We're going to be also having some musicians coming in. They're going to be playing for us as well, so we can get the whole mood set up here. And then, of course, we're going to make contact. It's going to be amazing. So stay tuned for that. 877-733-1011. That's 877-733-1011. We'll be back. Bill Holman's with us tonight on Ground Zero. Carol Wilson, of course, the psychic who's behind The Skull Speaks, the book, a remarkable book about how the crystal skull does speak. Now, Bill, give us a quick background of the skull, how you came in contact with it, where is it from, and then we're going to take a break and come back, and then we're going to have some musicians play a few songs, or just play a intro so we can get into the mood, and then we're going to communicate. So tell us about the skull.
Okay, the skull was found in 1924 by a British explorer, F.A. Mitchell Hedges. He was down in Central America looking for a connection between the Maya and Atlantis. He felt there was that connection, and he heard about a lost city buried deep in the jungle he thought was the White City. But the White City was never found, but what he did find is a city called Lubantun. And he uncovered it in a period of 4 years, and they found there was 7 pyramids, a ball court, spiritual centers, over 28 acres of Mayan ruins. And in the tallest one, it was said that if you went to the top, you could see all the way to the ocean. And the kids were not allowed on it, but Anna, his adopted daughter, snuck up on it one day with a couple Mayan kids because they said if you went to the top, you could see the ocean.
Right.
And she went there, and the sun was behind the clouds, and it came out, and the rocks had moved a little bit, and there was openings, and the sun went through one of the openings, and there was a big bright light inside. And she ran down and told her father, and she was in big trouble, but he thought there must be something there. And they were up the next day, and they started on opening it up, and it started to collapse. And they had to take one rock at a time to get it open. And then they put her on a rope and lowered it into this pyramid that hadn't been opened for 1,000 years. And she felt around and put it in her shirt. And when they brought her up and the Mayans saw it, it was like their God had returned, and they started crying and kissing the ground and everything. And it was so impactful for Mitchell Hedges that he presented to the high priest, who put it on an altar and burnt fires around it 24 hours a day, and people from all over out of the jungle would come to see it. It was with them until they had to leave the site in 27, and the high priest presented it back to him for safekeeping, because Mitchell Hedges always brought 2 doctors. He brought food, medicine. He paid the natives for their work, and they had great respect and love for him, and they felt he could take care of it where they probably wouldn't be able to. So it went to him and stayed with him until he passed away in 59. In 59, it went to his adopted daughter, Anna, who kept it, had it till she passed away in 2007.
Finally, on a journey where getting lost is the only true destination, where the past, present, and future all coexist on the same timeline, where happiness is an illusion. This is the future we are in right now, where our phones are the first things that we touch when we wake up, the last thing we touch before falling asleep. Radiant, seductive screens we so lovingly, endlessly gaze upon. Much like you're doing right now. Welcome to a future where our true reflection is only revealed in us screen. Dark. Welcome to the darkness. I hope you find it enlightening.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, the loudspeaker spoke up and said, the loudspeaker spoke up and said, give up, give up, give up, give up, give up.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Tonight is special Ground Zero as we communicate with the Mitchell Hedges skull. We have the caretaker Bill Holman with us tonight. We have Carol Wilson on Skype with us, psychic medium who has a relationship with the skull. And tonight, to begin the program, we are going to... tonight is going to be a very serious night. I really, really want to channel or at least get messages from the skull. So we have a number of musicians that are going to be providing music for us to start the presentation, to get us all in the mood. Now, I want everyone to understand that the skull can be viewed by going to facebook.com/groundzero radio. And the skull is right there. And then, of course, as I said earlier, we're going to start this presentation with some music. Now, this music is It's island. It's basically it's the ancient music that's going to be played tonight, so we can get the mood going here. We also have something new called the white circle technology, which we're going to be using too, in order to have the skull communicate. Hopefully, to give it a voice. This is the first time we've used it. It's similar to the black cube, but it's a different technology. So we're hoping that it will work tonight. If it doesn't work tonight, we certainly won't use it. But we have a feeling it will work tonight. We're gonna use it. But first of all, I want to introduce our musicians tonight on the program. If someone would like to step on the microphone and introduce who you are and what you're about to do for us tonight.
Thank you, Gratitude family. I am Izzy Eagle Song, traveling with the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull with Ancestral Medicine. Just gonna give you a little bit of flute for your ears.
Fantastic.
I'm Bree Summers, and I'll be singing a song for you, and we're going to dedicate this musical medicine to the corn moon, to this full moon. That
And it's
we're
out there right now. It's beautiful,
yeah,
isn't it?
Is,
It's awesome.
She is grandmother out there for us.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm Adam Shield of the Feather, and together we are Tree of Light Ancestral Medicine Revival. As my brother mentioned, we are traveling with Bill and the Crystal Skull, providing this music with Bill and the presentation that he does as well. So thank you for having us.
Okay, fantastic. Here we go. This is going to be amazing. That's amazing. That is amazing. Sets the mood right. Everybody is now ready to tell you what we're going to do. Let's take a break so that we can have everything ready for the communication with the skull. Now everything has been the room's been cleared. Everything's nice. Corn moon, we're looking out at that right now. This is going to be exciting, guys. So stay tuned for more. We're going to get Carol on too to talk about maybe some questions she may want to ask the skull, and of course the white circle will be also utilized tonight. So 877-733-1011. That's 877-733-1011. We'll be back. Bill Holman is with us tonight on Ground Zero. And we also have Carol Wilson with us tonight. We have one question from the phones before we contact the skull tonight. This comes from Chris in New Hampshire. Chris, you have a question for Carol. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. It's a two-part question.
Okay.
So the first part of it is that clarification on whether or not the skull finds the channeler and the handler, or is it the other way around? And the second part of the question is that who do you predict will be the next handler and the next channeler?
Anyone want to take that? Carol first?
Did the skull find me? I would think so, yes. Although it's been through many, many hands. And will it also find the next one? Oh, I'm sure. I mean, if you think of this being a very old artifact, it has been through many hands and been used in many different ways until it's reached us. Speaking for myself, it was a very mysterious way that it came about, and I think it will be probably a very mysterious way for the next person that it communicates through.
Bill, are you training anybody, to be the next one in line for you that's going to handle the skull?
Well, it all comes naturally, and it have to go with the flow. So at this point, I'm not training anyone. Well, I am, there's ones around that are picking up things, but not giving them the full training.
Okay.
So, yeah, not yet.
Okay, so I guess, Chris, to answer your question, yes, the skull finds the channeler, and I guess Bill is not training anybody at the moment.
Yeah, it's just a natural.
He has some little ones in his family that he might be training.
Yeah, so it'd be someone in your family, perhaps, family heirloom.
Well, it does the picking, not me. So it would make the right person come available at the right time.
Right.
So it's not something I have to push. I just let it happen. If you do that with the skull, it makes things very interesting because it takes you on these very interesting trips. So
sure.
I allow it, it does it. So yeah.
So first question we had from someone who sent a message to us via the internet asking a question of the skull, and I think that maybe this is an appropriate question, especially when we are looking out at the moon tonight. We're looking up into the stars. And somebody had asked the question, Carol, tonight, and we do have the white circle technology available, so maybe we'll use that in asking. Let's ask the skull the question, and that is, are there beings, humans, on other planets right now, and are they living out in space?
Are you asking me? Or? Oops. Yes.
Speak again to us. Tell us if there are beings on other planets.
Yes.
You heard the yes? I heard yes, there are.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay.
As there are here.
Are there here? Are some of them here? Are those who live on the other planets here?
Yes.
We're getting crossfeed. Is there a reason why we're getting crossfeed on that?
It's part of the device. It samples sound. It samples
Okay.
sound from the room.
Well, then put it on another phase then. Put it on the other one, on the top one. Then we don't have it phased from the other room, because that's something that I didn't know was going on with the phaser. Because if it's listening to us and then repeating it, it'll confuse people. So we should change it to the top one. Okay, let's see if the top one works better. All right, let's ask again. Is there life on other planets?
Yes,
Yes, there is. And what kind of life is it? Is it intelligent life? It's a microbial life. What kind of life is it?
Intelligent life.
Intelligent life. Something about we need to find ourselves out of here. Did you hear that? We need to find ourselves out of here. Out of where? We need to find ourselves out of here, it said.
I thought I heard it said heart when you asked more
It said-
specifically.
What do you mean we have to find ourselves out of here? Hello? So it said that it had to find its way out. Carol, can you, what do they mean they have to find their way out of here? Out of Earth? They need to leave the Earth, do you think?
No, I think what it might be referring to is that we have the tendency to accept that everybody that looks like us is a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But the skull has already said many times there are many life forms walking around the blue planet. And until you understand that these life forms, some of which are do not have a spiritual connection, do not have a connection to either a spirit or a soul, the soul being the program, the spirit being the search engine, with the ability to search and connect to the soul to return to that which we term God, which is infinite intelligence, that there are others walking the earth that are not like this. And until we can accept that, and accept that our ways of trying to deal with those beings has not worked, then we will always have conflict. In other words, we have to understand that, well, psychiatrists give them the name psychopaths, but they have no spiritual connection. And no matter what we do to punish that,
right,
or to try and explain it as a mental condition, as you can see, that hasn't worked.
It's so interesting you bring that up, because my last show I did was called The Dark Triad, and the Dark Triad personality, which is someone who is narcissistic, Machiavellian, and also a psychopath. And so it's funny that this is what you're getting from the communication regarding those among us who apply their Dark Triad traits. And I didn't even talk about this with you beforehand at all. So this is something that's coming right from you and coming from the skull, that we need to be aware of the Dark Triad personality.
Yes, and realize that we deal with it, or with them, in a way that is not beneficial. It doesn't work. Look at the state we're in.
Wow, and that's why we have the rioting we're having and all the other problems we're having in the world.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. It really is. I mean,
how should we deal with them, Carol?
How should we deal with them?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, the fact that there is no spiritual connection, what you have to do is to, what the skull suggests that we do, is to start from a very basic idea of removing them from an energy in which they can collectively enjoy this energy, and separate them to a more spiritual understanding.
So we have to get rid of the negative energy and put them more towards a spiritual, more constructive energy rather than destruction.
Yes.
And that's what we're seeing happening right now, that they need to find that connection that's not destructive. Amazing. You know, we were having this discussion yesterday, actually. We had a young man shot and killed in downtown Portland, actually. And we were talking about the Dark Triad, which is this personality trait of psychopathy and and Machiavellianism and the idea of narcissism and entitlement that seems to be permeating right now. So the skull certainly is giving that information to Carol tonight, and through the white circle technology. Bill Holman with us and Carol Wilson with us tonight on Ground Zero. We'll be back with more tonight to give you more insight from the Crystal Skull on Ground Zero. Don't go away. The Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull. We got Bill Holman with us. And we have Carol Wilson with us tonight on Ground Zero. We just asked the skull about life on other planets. We talked about the personality of life. And Carol started talking about some of the personalities that are among us now that are darker personalities, talking about psychopaths, narcissists, and those personality traits and the aggression that we're seeing now. And it was interesting because I had talked about this just the other night, that, we all seem to be in this world of anti-heroes. We seem to be in this world of the underdog wanting to try and be a hero. And so what you see are a lot of people who are, their personalities are composed of narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and, despite the fact that, Carol, people say that these traits are undesirable, the media decides that they want to embody these dark triad characters and make them more interesting for all of us. And I think the media has a hand in this, don't you?
Absolutely. If we're not careful, we're going to be totally, well, not all of us, but totally mind-controlled by what we see on the media. It's a shame because it's become cradle to grave. And, they put their 2-year-olds in front of the television set, that's the babysitter, and whatever they see on that is retained.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has done enough research to see what it does to a certain type of mind. If you have a spiritual connection, if you are, I like to liken it to a computer because I like the KISS methods and those things.
Yeah.
If you think that our main object is to return to that which was perfection, and you can call that by many names, and to return to the universe. Now, if you think about your soul is only part of your many lives. It is the complete storage of many lives. If you think of your spirit, that's your search engine. And your spirit is constantly saying, do the right thing, do this, do this, do this. That's if you're connected to your program, which is the soul, the sum of many lifetimes. If you don't have that connection, then you are floating around on this planet and you are going to follow whatever is easiest. And like any computer, when it jams up, you just keep bashing the keys normally and you turn it off. So now you have no connection. You're floating out here, and whatever appeals to you and whatever fills the need for the connection to the spirit you don't have, and that's where you get your gang mentality.
Right.
You are going to follow.
I wanted to, ask the skull, if we do not abandon its narcissism, we do not abandon the psychopathy, what is going to happen to the earth? What's going to happen? Hell is going to come down. That's what I heard. Hell is going to come down.
I heard come down. I heard that part.
That would never be allowed to happen.
What would never be allowed to happen?
The earth will be overrun.
Well,
the earth,
I don't think it would be either, but I mean, it said that hell would come down if we don't change. Hell would come down. That's what I heard.
Well, that's a terminology. What is hell?
Well, it's chaos, is it not? Okay, let me ask the skull. When you say hell, define hell. Define hell. I want to hear what hell is. Don't make me. Don't make me explain. You don't want to explain it? Can you explain what you mean by hell? She says it can't happen. What do you mean by hell? We want what? Said we want something. You want what? What? Take you away. Take you away from here. We want to take you away from here. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of people tell me that we should be leaving here. We shouldn't be here in this place because it's so bad. We want to take you away from here. And I mean, Carol, what do you say? I mean, we are literally ground zero for what is going on in the world right now. I mean, every time you look on the news, they're talking about what's going on in Portland. And so, and a lot of people have said, you know, to me that they wish that they could have me move away and do my show somewhere else that's safer. And so when the skull says, we want to take you away from here, is there danger to be had? I mean, are we, is it going to get darker before the dawn?
Yes.
Here in Portland, it's going to get darker, you think?
Yes.
Let's see if we can ask it directly when we start seeing the darker.
Right, tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. What you're seeing is the head of the serpent. You're not seeing what's rattling underneath where you are.
So, okay, tomorrow it's going to get darker. When, okay, let's ask the skull with the white technology. What should the country, when are we going to see a problem in the country? When is that going to happen all over the country? Christmas Eve, it said. Christmas Eve, it said. Christmas Eve, it said. Christmas Eve. Wow.
12/24/20.
12/24/20. Is that the date? 12/24/20, Skull? Yes. Oh
yeah, that's a yes.
12/24. Christmas Eve, Carol. The darkest of times, Christmas Eve, it says. And you know, and they were saying today, our governor was saying today that she wants us to, I guess they're going to keep an emergency here in Oregon until 3 months. They're going to keep us under emergency for 3 months here in the state of Oregon. So they were telling us. So that's right around the time of the election.
Yes.
Should we?
And I think she's quite right to do that.
That's
you have a lot of no souls there, and they are attracted by the energy of the planet there. Everybody is given the chance. Even the no souls are given a chance. Put them in a spiritual place and see if they can begin to understand the being that they are. Once that glimmer of understanding breaks through, then okay, things can change. But I asked once, why has there never been peace in the Middle East since the beginning of time? And the answer was, why do you think all the great teachers were in the Middle East? Because they were there to teach. We have a word called spirituality, but they were there to teach that your understanding of life is very narrow. You're here many times.
Right. I want to go to some of the calls. Let's go to Josh in Arkansas. Hi, Josh. You're on Ground Zero. Go ahead. Josh, hi. You're on Ground Zero. Go ahead. Can you hear me, Josh? Is there a reason why Josh can't hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're on the air. Go ahead. That means you. Go ahead, Josh.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's great to be on. I'm a long-time listener. But today I feel like I was led to listen to your program. I don't listen every night.
Okay.
Today I was at work on my break, trolling through YouTube videos, and I'd heard of the crystal skulls before, but it's been years and years since I've seen anything about it. saw a YouTube video where Dan Aykroyd, of all people, was talking about it, and so I watched it for a minute. And then I turned on the radio tonight to listen to your program, and you're talking about the crystal skulls. Is there a reason? That's kind of my question. What does that mean? Is this kind of like confirmation of I'm on the right track in my life, or I don't understand why these two things happen today?
Well, Bill can explain that. Go ahead, Bill. Explain that to Josh, please.
Sure, Josh. I travel all over with the skull, and what it does, I've seen where certain people are drawn to it for one reason or another. And it always happens, like sometimes people dream about it the night before. They didn't know anything about skulls, and all of a sudden they dream about it, and then the next day they hear that it will be there and they can see it. So that kind of is a drawing there, and there's a reason for everything, and the skulls have a special connection to certain people. And so whatever that is about it, and then the next day they hear.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's something that must be there, and I'm sure in the next, not too distant future, there'll probably be a connection, and you'll be able to meet it in person. But
so it'll be revealed in a short time why this is what's going on today.
I would say so. Just go with the flow, and there's you were introduced now to it because of that, and now the connection is made, and you'll things will happen. Things will put it in your place. If you look up on the internet, there's a Facebook page called the Mitchell Hedges Crystal Skull, and you can go there and do a meditation with it, because we do that twice a month, if you'd like. And just go there. It'll give you the time, and you'll be able to connect it with it in person if you feel that need to do that.
I really appreciate the call, Josh. Thank you so much for calling in. You bet. Take care. We're going to take a break quickly, and we're going to try to wire things together again, because we had just a crossover that we needed to take care of, so we're going to do that.